This is a story that has spanned multiple generations. This account begins with Abraham, a man who would later be recognized as the father of faith, and Sarah, his wife, whose greatest desire was offspring. However, the path to descent did not prove easy. It resembled a journey through a desert full of challenges. Even in view of Abraham's advanced age, God promised a numerous lineage, and the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "I will give this land to your descendants." Genesis 12:7. "Look now at the heavens, and count the stars, if you can count them." And he said to him, "So shall your descendants be." Genesis 15:5. When Sarah faced difficulties conceiving and Abraham showed concern, the narrative took an unexpected turn. A loyal servant became the link between the couple's desire and reality, bringing into the world a son whose birth would prove crucial in the history of humanity. This event was marked by divine promises, but also by obstacles and sacrifices. At the heart of this narrative lies the unshakable faith of a family, the divine promise and destiny of a boy destined to be the patriarch of a nation. Under the vast starry sky, on a silent night, Abraham and Sarah, whose hopes were as old as the desert that surrounded them, prayed fervently. They were looking for a heavenly sign, a promise capable of filling the void in their hearts. Meanwhile, Hagar, the loyal servant, watched from afar, understanding the pain reflected in her master's eyes. Given Sarah's sterility, and following the customs of the time, Sarah offered Hagar to Abraham as a means of generating an heir, when he was already around 85 years old. The story begins to be built. In Genesis chapter 16, now Sarai, Abram's wife, had not borne him any son, as there was an Egyptian servant named Hagar. She said to Abram, "Since the Lord has prevented me from having children, possess my servant, perhaps I can form a family through her." In your eagerness to see God's promises fulfilled in your life, Abram responded to Sarai's proposal. Abram and his family had been living in Canaan for 10 years. Sarai, his wife, handed over her Egyptian servant Hagar to him. He slept with Hagar, and she became pregnant. Ishmael was born when Abraham was 86 years old, in a moment that transcended time, when the baby's cries mixed with the sigh of the desert wind. It was a reminder that in life's most unpredictable moments, miracles can happen, and divine promises can flourish, even in the arid sands of uncertainty. Ishmael's arrival was like the dawn after a long night of darkness. Abraham and Sarah, faces marked by the journey, smiled as they held that little being in their arms. Hagar, the woman whose faith guided destiny, looked at the baby with eyes full of gratitude and wonder. In the corridors of time, Ishmael's birth echoed like an echo of ancient promises, a reminder that faith and devotion can break the shackles of impossibility. Ishmael's presence in Abraham's tent was not just a blessing, he was a living testimony of divine providence, weaving a thread of hope in human destiny. This was the thought of Abraham and Sarah when looking at Ishmael. And so, young Ishmael, with his existence marked by God's grace, grew up under the starry sky of the desert, a son of promise, a witness to divine fidelity. Abraham loved Ishmael and asked God to consider him as his promised heir. When Ishmael was 13 years old, God renewed his promise to Abraham, who at the time was 99 years old, promising a descendant of Sarah. On a star-filled night, Abraham received a heavenly visit. A soft and powerful voice echoed in the desert, confirming that Isaac, the son who would be born to Sarah, would be the heir of the divine promises. God also commanded circumcision as a sign of covenant. So Abraham and all the men who were with him were circumcised, including Ishmael at 13 years of age. For Ismael, a preteen, it would be normal for this revelation to shake his emotional structure. However, he learned that his role in the grand story of the divine plan was different, but equally vital. He was the eldest brother, son of the one who carried with him a promise to shape the destiny of nations. Soon after, Isaac was born. Isaac's birth caused conflicts between Sarah and Hagar, who already had disagreements even before Ishmael's birth. On one occasion, while still pregnant, Hagar fled to the desert, where an angel instructed her to return and named her son Ishmael, meaning God hears. Genesis 16:11. The problems between Sarah and Hagar intensified during Isaac's weaning, when Ishmael mocked him. A mother's love turned into jealousy and resentment, creating a shadow over the peace of that tent. Sarah, driven by her emotions, decided that Hagar and Ishmael could no longer share the same roof. Sarah, offended, demanded that Abraham send Hagar and Ishmael away. Genesis 21 verse 9 and 10. Sarah's request went against the customs of the time, causing Abraham great displeasure. Worried, Abraham sought guidance from God, who assured the safety of Ishmael and Hagar, also promising to make a nation out of him. At first, Abraham was disturbed by the situation, especially for the sake of his son. God comforted Abraham, telling him not to grieve over Ishmael and Hagar. He instructed Abraham to listen to Sarah's voice, as her offspring would be called through Isaac. At the same time, God assured that he would also make a nation out of Hagar's son, since he was also a descendant of Abraham, Genesis 21:11-13. This divine revelation calmed Abraham's concerns, assuring him that both sons would be blessed and that God's plan for his offspring would be fulfilled. After being comforted by the Lord, Abraham said goodbye to Hagar and her son. They took bread and water with them, but at a certain point, the water ran out, and they feared for their lives. However, God intervened, providing help and renewing the promise of prosperity for Ishmael, Genesis 21:19. And so, in the heart of the desert that had once welcomed them as family, Ishmael and Hagar were left at the mercy of the wide world. But God, faithful to his promise, was always present, watching their every step, caring for them in the desert. In the desert, where thirst burns like the merciless sun, Ishmael and Hagar found strength in God's promise. He sent water when her throat was dry and food when her stomach was empty. They saw everyday miracles, witnessed divine providence in every sunrise and sunset. Ishmael and his mother went to live in the desert of Beersheba and then in the desert of Paran. Although Isaac was Abraham's only official heir, Ishmael and the other children that Abraham had with his other Keturah wife also received material goods from the patriarch, Genesis 25. This indicates that both Ishmael and the sons of Keturah benefited from Abraham. Under God's loving gaze, Ishmael grew up to become a skilled hunter, a leader of men, and a man of faith. God's promise not only sustained them, she transformed them. The desert, which was supposed to be his punishment, became his place of learning, growth, and, above all, a constant encounter with divine grace. Thus, under God's protective gaze, Ishmael flourished in the desert, becoming a fulfilled promise, a tangible proof of divine care for the children of faith. Over time, young Ismael grew up and formed his own family. In the heat of the desert, he became a loving father and respected leader. His 12 sons and his daughter, fruits of a blessed lineage, multiplied like the stars in the sky. Each child, a living testimony of the promise made to Abraham, carried with him the inheritance of faith and the promise of a great future. Ishmael, with wisdom acquired in desert schools and unshakable faith, guided his descendants with honor. He taught them not only the art of survival, but also the ways of devotion and love. The tribe of Ishmael became a prosperous nation, a living testimony to God's unceasing care and promise. Tribe of Ismael? Yes, that's right, from Ishmael, Abraham's firstborn son. We know a lot about the 12 tribes of Israel descended from Isaac, but the story of Ishmael and his 12 tribes is intertwined with the history of humanity. Remember that Ishmael carries the Hebrew meaning of God will hear and was promised blessings and leadership of a great nation. His journey becomes crucial not only for his life, but also for the 12 tribes that emerge, often forgotten in light of the prominence given to the tribes of Israel. Ishmael becomes a point of convergence in monotheisms, connecting Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. His presence in Abraham's genealogy has profound and lasting implications for religious traditions, shaping contemporary understanding. The distinction between Ishmael and Israel is vital to understanding Semitic diversity. While the 12 tribes of Israel descend from Jacob, the tribes of Ishmael trace their origins to Abraham's firstborn. The generalization that all Arabs are descendants of Ishmael is mistaken. The Arab community includes several Semitic peoples linked to figures such as Abraham, Lot, and Esau. This diversity is the essence of the Middle East, where different Semitic communities have contributed to the rich cultural history. The distinction between Ishmael and Israel transcends genealogy, reflecting the multiplicity of experiences and trajectories over the centuries. Understanding this difference is essential to appreciating the complex biblical and historical narratives that shaped the civilizations of the ancient Near East. Ishmael figures as a crossroads in the three main monotheistic religions, uniting and differentiating Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Ishmael plays a crucial role in building the Kaaba in Mecca, the spiritual center of Islam, alongside his father Abraham. Although religious traditions may vary, there is consensus on the central importance of Ishmael in the history of Abrahamic religions, resonating not only in scripture but also in practices and rituals. The divine promise to Abraham, recorded in Genesis 16 and 21, outlines the destiny of Ishmael and his 12 tribes, promising blessings and the formation of a great nation. Each tribe, mentioned in Genesis 25:13-15, contributes uniquely to Ishmaelite history and identity. Neth, one of Ishmael's sons, stands out with a prophetic name, suggesting a special connection with divine promises. The prophet Isaiah, in his book in chapter 60 verse 7, mentions the prominence of the tribes of Kedar and Neth in the formation of a blessed people. These elements form the complex and significant narrative of Ismaili traditions over the centuries. Despite the challenges of the desert environment, the Ismaili tribes not only survived but thrived, marking the history of the Middle East indelibly. The story of Ishmael, recorded on sacred scrolls, is not just a family tale but a vital chapter in theology. The duality between the natural birth of Ishmael and the supernatural birth of Isaac echoes throughout the scriptures, as Paul alluded to in the New Testament. This story serves as a reminder that God works in mysterious ways. His promises are not limited to the obvious, but permeate the complexities of human destiny. Ishmael, with his journey marked by divine grace, represents God's compassion for all his children. His story is not just a narrative of the past, but a light that illuminates the hearts of those who seek the truth. On every page of the Bible, in every word spoken by the wise men, the story of Ishmael continues to teach us about God's providence, which unfolds even in the most unexpected places and in the most unlikely lives. Ishmael's descendants are often identified as Ishmaelites in the Bible. They were organized into 12 tribes that lived in mobile camps in the southern desert. Ishmael died at the age of 137. The Bible does not say where he was buried, but Muslim tradition states that he was buried in the Kaaba, in Mecca. In the New Testament, Ishmael is mentioned especially by the Apostle Paul. The apostle used the figure of the slave son in his allegory about the opposition of legalistic religious people who persecuted those who were born according to the Spirit and enjoyed freedom in Christ. Galatians 4 and 5. And so, the story of Ishmael, the son of Abraham, transcends generations. His journey, full of challenges and triumphs, remains a beacon of hope, an eternal proof of God's faithfulness. Through their experiences, we learn that even in the harshest of adversities, faith and divine promise are like water in the desert, sustaining us, nourishing us, and guiding us toward a future full of possibilities. Ishmael's story reminds us that regardless of our origins or circumstances, we are all part of the divine plan. Just as Ishmael found meaning and purpose in his journey, we can also find light even in the deepest shadows. And with that, the story of Ishmael, the son of Abraham, lives within us, a perpetual lesson on the infinity of love and divine grace. And so, we say goodbye to the epic story of Ishmael, a testimony of faith, perseverance, and divine grace. His story continues to resonate through the centuries, an inexhaustible source of inspiration. As we reflect on the profound lessons this saga teaches us, we are invited to find meaning in our own lives. Throughout this video, we learn about the importance of unwavering faith, even when the path seems dark. We learn about the grace of God, which guides our steps, even in the arid sands of despair. We learn about the importance of finding hope even in the most unlikely places. And, above all, we learned about the importance of waiting for God's time to fulfill His promises to us. The fact that Sarah did not wait and tried to resolve it in her own way led to great conflicts and afflictions. And you, dear viewer, what did you learn from Ismael's story? What precious lessons have you learned from this fascinating journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below, as it is through sharing knowledge that we enrich our understanding of the world. If you like this story and want to continue exploring inspiring and enriching narratives, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our exciting stories. Together, we will continue our journey through the stories that shape the world, finding inspiration and wisdom in each narrative.